It's next investigation. Now I was just investigating the concept of civil war. As you see here, Charlie Veitch. Again, it's like Charlie, like the Colin, the Colin the Witch, right? Charlie Veitch, Charles Witch, Colin Witch, right? And they're going on with civil war quite a bit, right? Confronting the common civil war of England. Now, basically, right, when these characters are talking about a civil war, they're not being truthful, right? So, as you see here, the civil war is defined as factions vying for control of the government or territory, right? And it's governed by international humanitarian law, right? So, obviously, the type of civil war this Charlie Veitch and all this, right, is talking about is will be obviously like a conflict between the immigrant Muslim population and obviously the ethnic British population, right? Now this word here, belligerence, is very important in this, right? Recognition of belligerence, right? So civil war is type idea, right? But it's basically obviously the same nation, right? The same nation, right? And in the older times of civil war, like proper civil wars, it would have been the same ethnicities, right, that lived in the nations that would have been engaged in a civil war, right? Distinction between traditional international wars, right, and their national conflicts, which is civil war, right? Citizens or members of the same state or nation. So obviously you have national law versus international law, right? And obviously the two things are different, right? When you have this multiculturalism, right, it's basically undermining national type of idea, of course, right? It's to subvert the idea of national law, right? And they give it a new definition, right? As it says in the Bible, the nation must be destroyed, right? That's the purpose of the plan. So obviously the idea of civil war, right, would begin with the Roundheads and Cavaliers type of thing, right, in British history. And here you have the law of war, right? The laws of war define sovereignty of nationhood, states and territories. There's got to be some mention of ethnicity, right, in the laws of war, right? Like a civil war would be between the same ethnicity. It would be between the same members of the same country, which would in turn be members of the same ethnicity, right, by definition, right? So here you have foreign belligerent, right? A foreign belligerent, right, would be someone who's, say, they're fighting a civil war, right, but you're fighting against immigrant Muslims, so that there would not be the same nation, the same ethnicity, and therefore the same nation, right? There would actually be a foreign belligerent. And that is recognised by international law as opposed to national law, right? That's important thing, right? So you have two or more entities, right, being engaged in a war. Now that would obviously be the immigrant Muslims versus the ethnic British. See as such like a conflict of any type was to break out between the two parties, right? This would be international law, right? So it would not be a civil war at all. It would have to be an international incident, right, which would then result in a declaration of international war, right? So say Pakistani Muslims harmed British people in British soil, right? There would then need to be a declaration of war against Pakistan, the actual country of Pakistan. See? It could not be taken as a civil war. And these people know it, these government people know this, essentially. So it's all gaslighting, Like, say characters like Charlie Veitch, right, the Carlin Witch, they knew for a fact that this is gaslighting, right? It's gaslighting upon gaslighting, right? Upon gaslighting even more, right? So if this type of situation was to come about, it would not be a civil war, right? Under obviously British Constitution and international law, right? And that's what counts, you know, the British Constitution and the international law, right? And obviously they're trying to redefine sort of civil laws and all this through using European Union legislations, right? But in reality, this could not be a civil war. It would be an international war between two disparate nations, right? Pakistan and Britain, right? Because the ethnicity is still intrinsic to the nationality in the common law of Britain, right? British Constitution. So you see, obviously the Veitch gaslighter, right? Born in Brazil. And now Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, it's basically mixed race. Central, you know, it's all mixed race, right? So again, you're talking about the same agenda behind it, right? The Scottish merchant, you know, as in the other video what I've done, right? Kaufman, you know, and obviously, you know, in with the shills, been on the BBC. So again, a total gaslighter. And part of the same club who are, you know, advocating for the same result, which is this sort of destruction of nationalities, right? Nations and races, you know. That's what he's advocating, right? The vision for a united Europe. I mean, we can see now, right, how well that's going, right? So of course it was never meant to be about this, and you see how Richard Winston Churchill, right, was basically a traitor. And the idea that conquers the world is basically multiculturalism, right? The mass immigration and all this. As you see, they obviously have like an international war strategy, what they call Amber Book. They've got Amber Book here, right? So basically, you know, if there was any type, like I say, if there was any type of conflictive situations, this would result in an international war, right? Not a civil war. It would become an international incident, right? And therefore the foreign immigrants, say it was Pakistanis or Africans, whatever, they would have to be deported. Right? No, they're not going to go to the lengths, right, of importing all these characters just to deport them. Right? So they don't want a civil war idea. They don't want any type of conflictive war ideas, right? Because ultimately, would it bring about an international war? It would have to. You know, somebody would sort of mention it. You know, in the House of Lords or something like that. You know, it would. You know, someone would mention it, obviously, that it didn't, how that would impact upon international law, right? And that would be the end of the multiculturalist plan, see? So they're not going to have a civil war, you know, it's, and any type of stuff that they sure that's to do with that will be fake, fraud. You know, you see a lot of stuff on, again, that type of Manchester auditors or something, like left and right wing. And of course, it's basically like a pantomimic case scenarios, right? Again, you know, when they're dealing on this EU legislation, they're in defiance of proper law. Right? The nation must have a stable group of people. That's obviously the ethnic British. Right? The other ones are unstable, you know, as you know. Unstable groups of immigrants are being imported in against British constitutional law. Right? As I say, if there was any like type of you know, conflict or battle or anything like that between the different groups of people, right, it would boil down to eventually an international war incident. You know? Yeah, Britain would have to declare war on the country which these people come from. Right? They'd have to.